All right, for the latest on the government shutdown, I want to bring in independent journalist Rachael Bade. Rachel, good to see you. Thanks for being here. What's the latest?
What's the latest? Well, look, I think today Democrats are going to be feeling the heat quite a bit. I think there was a lot of questions about the strategy to begin with. I mean, tell me or show me a government shutdown that has ever worked in history when it comes to a party demanding something and actually getting it and not facing blowback. So there was obviously a question about the strategy to begin with. But look, they're starting off a little bit crippled. Chuck Schumer, as he lost 3 members of his caucus yesterday when they had the final vote to keep the government open. 3 Democrats who peeled off. And I think the pressure is just going to go up as the coverage really starts to focus on what happens in a government shutdown. It's been more than half a decade, 6 years about. And sometimes people forget, but like there are real ramifications here. I mean, not just 750,000 federal workers being told to stay home and you're not going to get paid, but things like troops showing up to work and not getting paid, border enforcement showing up to work and not getting paid. You think about air traffic controllers who are making sure our flights are on time and safe. You could see they're supposed to show up to work, but a lot of people, when they're not getting paid, maybe they call in sick and that could be a problem. And then for everyday Americans, it's like trying to get a hold of an agency and not being able to, trying to get a permit if you're a businessman or businesswoman, company owner of some sort, and you can't get that. So there are real ramifications here. And I'm not even talking about the economic blowback we could see on this. So I think I'm not sure when we start to see Democrats cave on this, but I think the pressure is really going to be on them in the next 24 hours and going on beyond that.
All right, so just to set the scene for folks, Republicans have a 53-seat majority in the Senate. Rand Paul's never going to vote for this, so that's really 52 seats. So you need 8 Democrats, right?
Right.
And I thought Fetterman was a yes. Were you surprised by the other 2 yesterday?
Yes and no. I think in March, when Democrats were looking at this choice as well about whether they were going to shut the government down or not, there were 10, I believe, that voted to keep the government open. I obviously can't read their minds, and out there, a lot of them are publicly saying there was Schumer on this, but these guys, they've been around for a long time. They know the strategy doesn't work. So I wouldn't be surprised if more Democrats probably felt like they wanted to vote for this and then just felt, the pressure that they did not. I mean, Cortez Masto, one of the senators who voted for this, Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, she was previously the Senate political committee leader. So she's also pretty smart on politics too. And so, I mean, she probably realized this was a losing hand. Angus King, an independent Democrat, or he's an independent from Maine, but he sort of caucuses with Democrats. Again, I'm not surprised to see him vote for this, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see more people beyond these folks. I mean, other folks to look at, Kirsten Gillibrand, she's from New York. She was one of the most vocal supporters for keeping the government open in March, and she actually voted against funding the government yesterday. So I wouldn't be surprised to see her appeal. And there are a number of Democrats who are going to be retiring that we should watch as well. Gary Peters, Jeanne Shaheen.
Gary Peters of Michigan, Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so that gets us 3. By my math, which, I didn't take any in college, that leaves, we need 5, so that gets us 3. We need two more. Who are the next few likely that you think?
Maggie Hassan, probably as well. She's up for re-election, right? Or I could be wrong about that. But and then Michael Bennet as well from Colorado. He is somebody I would watch as well. So,
so that gets you the. But then I can't believe, like I'm from Virginia. Warner and Kane to me are interesting because I got to believe that Northern Virginia, because of the concentration of federal workers and federal entities, buildings, et cetera here. How are they not feeling the heat?
Well, look, there actually was, I feel like there was one federal government employers union that sort of encouraged this on. I was surprised we didn't see more coming out against it. There were some federal employee unions who did come out against it. But yeah, it's a great question. For a lot of these Democrats, the argument is that President Trump is going to do what he wants to do. So you might as well play a little hardball. But we're already seeing this morning that the administration is willing to really put the heat on some of these constituencies. Russ Vought, who leads the Office of Management and Budget, he's a hardcore conservative. He came out and announced that they're going to be cutting or freezing, I should say, $18 billion worth of infrastructure projects in New York City. So that's a direct hit, obviously, on Chuck Schumer, and Hakeem Jeffries, the two Democratic leaders who are both from New York. So, yeah, I mean, at some point, people are going to start to feel the burn. And it'll be interesting to see what those, government workers start telling their Virginia senators on this.
All right, guys, I hate to interrupt this conversation, but if you're loving the Sean Spicer Show, maybe you want something to snack on, join me in getting a great snack in masa chips. These things are unbelievable. No seed oils, just 3 ingredients. And I'm telling you, they've got a ton of great flavors. Original, blue, lime, habanero. Oh, it's amazing. Every one of them is great. You can dip them. They're amazing. Go to masachips.com/Sean, S-E-A-N, masachips.com/Sean. Use code word Sean, spelled the right way, S-E-A-N, to get 25% off. All right, back to this great conversation. And remember, if you're watching the Sean Spicer Show, the official chip, masachips.com/Sean, code word Sean. You mentioned New York and Gillibrand, one of the ones that you thought was potentially a peel off. Do you think that Schumer, based on his previous votes, actually would rather get rid of this? Or is he just sticking putting this line in the sand because he has to politically? He has to watch the left flank. I don't get the sense that historically he's been a guy that wants to be on the record for shutting the government down. Yeah,
I mean, look, you see what he's saying publicly. I've covered him for a long time. I feel like, if I was a gambling person and I could see into his heart of hearts, I would bet he knows this is probably not a good idea. I think, the pushback he got for keeping the government open in March was probably a shock to him. He probably knew he was going to get some heat, but the level of it was just incredible. And not just from, progressives around the country, but from fellow Democrats on Capitol Hill, even Hakeem Jeffries, who dissed him in a press conference for keeping the government open. So look, at some point, maybe he made this calculation that the base is telling me I have to touch the stove, and he's going to realize pretty quickly that it's hot. But maybe that is the strategy, right? Maybe it's to sort of teach the base a lesson. This doesn't work. Problem with that theory, if it's even right, is that as leader, it is your job to sort of tell your party when something is unrealistic. I mean, Mitch McConnell, you know this. He was not popular with the base. They didn't like him. And you know what? He kind of relished that. He collected cartoons making fun of him and put him in frames and put him up on his wall. He knew it was it's part of the job. And that's just what leaders are supposed to do. Schumer, he cares more about what the base thinks than Mitch McConnell ever did. And that's a problem.
You mentioned Russ Vought and sort of the strategic way that they're maybe looking at going after key constituencies. Do you think they've got a lot post Doge? Are they actually really looking at furloughing federal employees for good, using the gap between funding as a rationale for doing that?
I'm sure if it was up to Russ Vought, he would cut deep now that he has the power since the government is open. And by the way, they do have this power since Congress is not effectively doing their jobs. But when I heard that they were going to do something like this, I wasn't sure how much of it was just an attempt to sort of shake the trees and, provide some sort of leverage for themselves or try to scare Democrats. And the reason I had this thought is because I know when the Doge cuts were going on, there was a concern at some point that they were going too far. I remember talking to one pretty senior official in the administration who told me, look, cut the fat, yes. But at some point, it becomes a problem if you're cutting into the bone. And that's why, Elon Musk, widely praised and loved at the beginning, started to go a little too far for some people in the admin who thought maybe, this wasn't the best play and that this was not being strategically done. So I don't know how much they are willing to actually cut. I do think these strategic cuts, like you're talking about, to sort of punish Democrats and put the pressure on them, we're just seeing the beginning of that. That's for sure.
The Democrats clearly think that making healthcare an issue is a winning message. I don't get the sense that most people are really buying this yet because it's not real. I mean, the ACA tax or subsidies don't expire to the end of the year. It's not like people are feeling like, so it's a hard thing to get people to wrap their head around, at least as far as I can see. Do you think that this is to them the only hand they have to play, or are they really bought in on this?
It's interesting because when I got a sense that Democrats were going to employ a different strategy here over the summer, my question is like, what's the fight? Is this about, impoundment, which for those who are not familiar with wonky congressional speak, basically this notion of the administration cutting, even though Congress appropriated money, the Trump administration has done that. It's really caused, it's been a sore subject for a lot of Democrats and even some Republicans on Capitol Hill. Were they going to shut down over that? Was it going to be over these ACA tax credits? Was it going to be, at one point, Democratic leaders said they wanted to see the Trump administration roll back some of the, the big, beautiful bill when it came to Medicare savings. So I think that there was this belief that they would have to do this. What is the best sort of thing to hang their hats on? And they probably chose correctly the right one because, ACA, these healthcare tax credits, even Trump's pollsters have looked into this and warned that this is an issue that a lot of people care about. It will hit a lot of middle income Americans if these, healthcare tax credits expire. So, Democrats have sort of, guessed this is something that perhaps they can get Republicans to deal on. The question, though, I guess I have is whether Republican leaders can hold the line with this no negotiating stance. I mean, I think if they say we're not going to negotiate on this at all until you reopen the government, I think that there's a plausible reason or a plausible sort of expectation that they will still win and Democrats will cave. Like, Democrats in 2018, 2019, when President Trump, shut the government down to try to get money for his border wall, they drew a line in the sand and said, no money for your border wall. 35 days went by. They did not negotiate, refused to budge. And President Trump ended up caving and took a bit of a hit in the polls. So I think Republicans would probably do well if they do that. The question is, will they?
So that brings me to one of my last questions here. I mean, I believe that strategically, the Republicans are basically saying, let's buy some time and then have that discussion, because that's what the long term, the CR just keeps the government funding at current levels for 7 weeks. And then the argument is, okay, within that 7 weeks, then let's have a discussion about subsidies and spending and all these other policy decisions. That's when their view is, you buy us some time, then we go back to the table and we talk. Right. That to me seems they're dug in. That's the only game they're playing. Is there any scenario that you see that not being the case? My view is their goal is just to figure out a way to slowly wait till 5 more Democrats come over and say, fine, we'll give you some more time to negotiate. We're not saying we're all in. We're just saying we're going to give time. And that's what this is really about.
Yeah, I think that's the strategy they should employ. I think that their argument on this is really strong, especially when you point to like troops not being paid and the pressure being put on Democrats to cave. I mean, you and I talked about this this morning on the morning meeting, the Mark Halpern show. There is the wild card, and that is the president himself, who likes to be sort of a deal maker and say, look, I'm going to come in and I'm going to clean up the mess. And when I talk to, people close with him, I get a sense that he's a little deal curious here.
Curious.
Could he sweep in and say, we're going to solve this issue. We're going to do something with the ACA, healthcare credits. Obviously, like I said, his pollster said it's something he probably needs to address at some point. Does he maintain this line with Republican leaders that I don't need to give anything? Or does he say, oh, I'm feeling like maybe I want to strike a deal here? And I don't know that it would be panic per se or something like they feel a vulnerability. Like I said, I think that this is a shutdown fight. Republicans can very easily win. But the president himself, he might want to do something here in terms of negotiations. It's just hard to predict. You know that.
Deal curious. I like it. Rachael Bade, do me a favor. Put your crystal ball on or pull out your crystal ball. If you had to guess when this goes till, what is your gut tell you?
I think probably next week. I think we'll be here for a week. I highly doubt we go past 2. The minute you hit that pay period where employees are missing a paycheck, like forget it. It's like you're in big trouble because a lot of these employees live paycheck to paycheck. They just can't afford to not be paid. What happens to your mortgage? What happens to your rent? How do you pay groceries, healthcare issues? I mean, it becomes way more complex. So I think, Democrats will probably hold out for a few days and see how this plays. But the longer it goes, the harder it gets for them.
Yeah, I'm betting by the weekend. Rachael Bade, we're going to put if you're interested in following Rachel's work, all of her handles, her YouTube channel, everything else is in the show notes. Go check it out. Keep an eye on it. She knows what's going on. She's got her finger on the pulse. She'll know before I do, probably. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.